Good Tuesday, everybody, and welcome into the Volquest Podcast. I'm Eric Kane, Rob Lewis, Brent Hubbs, and Austin Price on with us here today. Tennessee falls 63-38 to South Carolina on Saturday. It's going to have to flip the script in a hurry. Of course, no Hendon Hooker. He's out with a torn ACL. Joe Milton will be the guy. You look at Vanderbilt now, in-state foe. It's going to be senior day, fighting for bowl eligibility, coming off two big wins over Kentucky and Florida. This game becomes really, really important and a big-time football game. But a lot of that, Brent Hubbs, is because of the way Tennessee played on Saturday night. Obviously, just not the effort you're looking for with the college football playoff. Hopes still very much alive and well. Not a good defensive effort, and Tennessee kind of made its bed, and it's going to have to play in it now.
Yeah, let's be honest, a horrific defensive effort. Just poor on all fronts. Didn't do anything well defensively. And it's a head scratcher. I mean, in 25 years of covering Tennessee football, it's up there as one of the bigger head scratcher games that you've ever seen. Memphis 96 is a game people talk about. 01 LSU because of the magnitude of that loss. And I think that's why people have been there's so much talk out there about what's going on with this team, Rob, because it doesn't add. What happened Saturday night is hard to just say, well, they just had a poor night on the field, right? Because when you're a 21-point favorite, you get beat by over 20 points. That one it's hard to wrap your head around and figure out what happened with Tennessee.
I mean, I've written this and said it, and I mean, it was the most surprising outcome to a sporting event that I think I can ever recall. I mean, the Memphis game you referenced, and that was an awful loss, but that was also a fluke, kickoff return that in hindsight, the guy should have been ruled down. LSU, I mean, at least that was the SEC West Division champ and, maybe the greatest college football coach of all time on the other sideline. I mean, South Carolina just did things that they haven't done to anybody all year long, and they did them for 60 minutes. And it was just it was mind-boggling to see that South Carolina team put up 63 points in a game.
Yeah, I mean, I get why everybody's mad. I mean, they should be, right? I mean, 9 touchdowns on 10 possessions. I mean, or do that against air. I mean, it's unbelievable. With that said, I mean, as we said Sunday, you scream the bucket. You got to move on. This team better move on, or Vanderbilt will beat them Saturday. I think that, Saturday, again, they may prove me wrong, but I think that, they won't be near as crisp on offense as they've been. I think that, who knows what happens with Brew McCoy. We'll see if he plays. If he didn't come back in the game after he subbed out for Ramel Keaton. Cedric Tillman took a big shot to the leg when another high pass, and he went and got it. And here he is taking more, lower body shots. Obviously Hendon's not there. And as much as I think Joe's improved, I mean, he still has, the tendency just to, rocket him in there, and when, sometimes that throw requires touch. And so, and Vanderbilt's playing with a lot of confidence. They won the last 2 games. Now, are they some juggernaut in doing so? No. But, they've won games that were in front of them. Can they do it again? If Tennessee lets them hang around, Vanderbilt can absolutely do it again, especially if the defense is as poor as it was Saturday.
And here's the thing with Vanderbilt. I mean, it's improved offensively. It's gotten better in a couple of areas. That offensive line's gotten a lot better, not turning it over as much. But defensively, it is statistically still worse than what it was last year. And last year it was, dead last in the SEC. So, but more on the South Carolina game. A lot of talk was about when we had media on Monday. What was the week of practice like? What was the 48 hours leading into kickoff? What was different? Because again, like Rob said, it was so shocking the way this turned out. And Josh Heupel said on Monday that he liked a lot of stuff about practice last week. He liked the attention to detail, said that they were focused and locked in. Amari Thomas said the same thing about practice last week. Then Aaron Beasley gets up there, and I kind of had to do a double take to make sure I was kind of hearing him correctly.
Too.
This is what Aaron Beasley had to say about heading into the game, what went wrong in the football game, and kind of how Tennessee approached it. At least Tennessee's defense.
Our biggest thing was just execution. We didn't execute, the calls we should have executed. In my opinion, the urgency, man, to start the game, we didn't have enough urgency. We thought we was going to come in there and just, everything was gonna fall where it was supposed to, but it don't work like that in college ball. So I think that was the biggest thing, just execution and the urgency. It wasn't there. I assume we just felt like it was gonna be given to us. We felt like we didn't have to, go out there and work for it. We thought they was just gonna, lay down and props to them. They came out, they played a great game. They played physical, and they're a great team, and they showed that Saturday.
Obviously it showed, like you said, it showed that on Saturday about South Carolina. Also showed that if that indeed was the mindset of some of the players defensively, it's not what you want to hear, Austin Price. And, credit Aaron Beasley. He was honest about it, and that's what he said on Monday.
Yeah. Any kind of correlation to the Georgia State game from a standpoint of, like, I think that team had that mindset, Georgia State will just roll out here and roll the ball out. And by the time they figured out they were in trouble, they couldn't get anything done. And it almost felt like that Saturday with Tennessee. By the time they realized, it was a problem and they couldn't reverse the traction.
Yeah, I think the difference that I would say was, I think the Georgia State story was that the coaching staff had moved on and wasn't really focused in on Georgia State.
True.
I don't think that was the case with Tennessee's coaching staff. I think they had a plan in place, and you can certainly debate whether it was a good plan. Looking at the execution of it, it wasn't. But as Aaron Beasley said there, they didn't play with the sense of urgency that they needed to. And, I don't know. I mean, Tennessee didn't have any answers sideline to sideline. I think they're going to see that again this week against Vanderbilt. Rob, I thought they got a little dose of that against Missouri. They handled it okay, but Missouri, a lot of jet sweeps, a lot of fly sweeps, trying to get to the corner. The difference between Missouri and South Carolina could get you going, try to get you going sideways, and then Spencer Rattler was hot and could throw it over your head. Missouri didn't have the capability of throwing it over your head. But I think until Tennessee shows they can stop that sideline to sideline stuff with their front seven, or even their linebackers and safeties, I think teams are going to show that and continue to show that against Tim Banks' defense.
I think you make a good point, because one of the comments for a lot of people coming out of the Georgia game was, did Georgia show people a blueprint? Did Georgia show people a blueprint? And we were all kind of like, maybe if you've got a bunch of NFL players on defense, that's a blueprint for you. But a lot of teams can do what South Carolina did offensively to Tennessee, without having NFL players all over the place. And I think you're exactly right, Hubbard. Missouri had a lot of success. That's a 4-point game in the third quarter until Tennessee takes off. And, South Carolina did enough. Tennessee had 500 plus yards of total offense, 38 points, 30 first downs. If I threw those stats at you, pregame, you're thinking that's an easy Tennessee win. Maybe they don't cover 3 touchdowns, but they go out and get their usual 40 some odd points. And seeing what South Carolina did to them offensively was mind-boggling. And it just kept happening and happening. And I think I would probably agree with Beasley's point about urgency, but I think Hubbard's right. I think South Carolina exploited some things that have probably been there all year long. And Josh talked about it today, not making plays in space, not getting off blocks. And, it wasn't anything super fancy.
To put this in Masters terms, Tennessee, a 10-win season is considered a huge success, right? Saturday is basically like Bogan 17 and 18, like Tiger did in 05, but still winning if you win Saturday against Vanderbilt. You lose, and this is Norman 96 type stuff, collapsing down the stretch. I mean, this is, Saturday is massive, and right now, early in the week, and I know everybody's going to laugh when I say this, I honestly don't know who I'm picking, because there's a lot of questions, and, I think Vanderbilt can beat Tennessee. I also think Tennessee could come out and it could look like, I told Hubbs this the other day, it could feel like Tyler Bray's first game against Memphis in the Liberty Bowl, where they're just throwing deep balls, jump balls, and, having a lot of fun with Joe Milton. But there's just a lot of questions. And until you get out there on the grass Saturday, I don't know if we can really answer them.
I mean, I think Tennessee can go out there and win by 25 if it wants to. It can win by 30 if it wants to. But again, I said the same thing about South Carolina last week. So there's
everybody did.
More.
South Carolina mods picked Tennessee 52-10 or 60-7 or whatever. They picked a bludgeoning. We picked a bludgeoning. No one saw what happened Saturday coming, which is what makes all of this, the reaction, what it is.
Well, and here's the thing that nobody took. I mean, you don't take into account, and I'm not saying it's anybody's fault who picked the game. Spencer Rattler's a talented player. Okay, he was successful at Oklahoma before he got beat out by Caleb Williams, who's going to New York as the front runner now, I guess, or one of the front runners for the Heisman Trophy. So it's not like Spencer Rattler has been a bad player. What he is he's a guy who's hot and cold. You got to knock him off rhythm. You got to get him out of sorts. Tennessee never came close to getting him out of sorts. If you look at this Tennessee defense overall, to me, the only way for them to be a successful defense, and Rob, Austin, Eric, you guys may disagree with me. I think with the limitations and what they are in the secondary, I think the only way they can really be disruptive to an offense is if they get after the quarterback. I think when you look at their two best games, LSU and Kentucky, there's 10 sacks in those two football games. And the Pittsburgh game, they got into the backup quarterback and they gave him a ton of problem. When Tennessee can't get home and can't get pressure, that they're going to have a hard time slowing anybody down if they've got some kind of quarterback play. That's why I'm a little perplexed by what, and I didn't look at it from the standpoint of how many times they absolutely blitzed or didn't blitz or whatever, but I'm perplexed that on any third down situation that's a passing situation, they're not bringing a bunch of people, whether it's 3rd and 8 or it's 3rd and 35. I'm perplexed at why they don't consistently bring people on 3rd and long. Because I think that's the only way their defense can be effective in defending the pass. That's just my belief.
I got it right here. I don't have third downs, but I mean, it's pretty remarkable when you look at it. Of course, this is according to Pro Football Focus. Spencer Rattler was kept clean 79.5% of dropbacks. That's 35 dropbacks in this football game. He was kept clean on 35. Tennessee blitzed 43.2% of the time. So Tennessee almost blitzed 50-50, and he was still kept clean. Spencer Rattler almost 80% of the time. That's alarming. That is alarming in a big way because I agree with you. I mean, there are limitations in this sector. Doesn't matter who it is. Of course, we know about the safeties. It's been a rotating door at cornerback all season long because of injuries and this and that. But in order to help those guys out back there, you need to apply pressure to the quarterback. Now, that means, for Tennessee's sake, is bringing somebody from the second or the third level because the front four is just not getting back there on a consistent enough basis. I don't have third downs here, but the fact that he was kept clean and not touched as much as he was in this football game, that's alarming, Brent.
Yeah, it's surprising to me that they blitzed half the time because it didn't feel like they were blitzing half the time. Now, again, when South Carolina brought the Atkins kid in and played him at running back, Rob, it was pretty clear he was just the extra blocker. I mean, he wasn't going to touch the ball. He wasn't going to get the ball. Nothing like that was going to happen. So they were max protected with him, and he was just picking up whoever came through the A-gap. And Tennessee, I guess, tried to bring more A-gap pressure than I realized that they did. But South Carolina did a really good job picking it up. They didn't disguise it very well. I don't think Tennessee didn't.
Yeah, I mean, when you're giving up 8 of 11 on third downs and touchdown drives on 9 to 10 possessions, to me, there's just no downside to gambling because whatever your base package and your game plan is very clearly not working. So I prefer to peel your ears back and go try to make something happen as opposed to sit there and suffer death by 1,000 cuts.
Well, and here's the other thing, Rob, and Austin. Rob, I agree with you as well. You look at that LSU game, it was the stunt game, right? They got home with 4 against LSU. You got Joshua Josephs with a sack. You got Byron Young with a couple of sacks. Then it was off of a stunt and a twist. Okay. Well, you can't – I don't know that you can do that effectively against Vanderbilt as much as they roll the quarterback out, Eric. I mean, if you bring an outside guy and loop him inside, to me, you're giving up a soft corner there in a rollout situation with the quarterback. I'm not sure you can do that because they get their quarterback on the edge quite a bit. So a challenge to create a pass rush this week for Tennessee. Tennessee desperately needs to find a pass rush this week defensively.
Yeah, especially if you're banking on Maury Thomas or DJ Terry to set that edge on the outside from that loop, whether they go underneath or they wrap back around. It's a slower player, especially with the law of the lateral, the jet sweeps and stuff like that. The Vanderbilt will run, especially with their quarterback. Then it'll have to have a wildcat guy in there because he is capable of doing that. So I thought something South Carolina did really, really well was again, you had that lateral attack when you had Joyner at quarterback in the Wildcat and all that. And then you had Spencer Rattler, who again was just phenomenal on the night. So they have got to find a way to get to the quarterback and to disrupt some things to help those guys out in the back end, because you're just not talented enough and you're slow back there right now. So obviously Tennessee, offensively, you want to add anything? I mean, I didn't think Hendon Hooker was extremely accurate, but you score 33 points before he goes out, or 31 points or whatever, score another touchdown late in mop-up duty. I mean, Tennessee's offense got over 30 points. It was just a defense that literally made one stop all night.
Yeah, I mean, it's a simple
Well,
thing.
I mean,
you weren't clean. You weren't clean, Hubbard, and you had to have played flawless perfection football with the defense playing the way it did, and the chances of doing that are not great, right? I mean, you're going to have a series or two where you stumble, you get a penalty, and you're playing at 2nd and 25, and it's just hard to get back to to pick up a first down. Not the case here, though. Ultimately it turns into, Tennessee was good, but they weren't great, and that resulted in 63-38.
Yeah, I mean, I said this on the Vol Network broadcast, and Pat Ryder talking about it, and it was like you felt like you were being critical of Hendon. Like Hendon was a little bit off, or he missed this or he missed that, and his numbers weren't bad at all. But the reality is, it was that way because of what you're saying, Austin. You had to score every play. I mean, one of the biggest misses of the night was the first possession of the second half, where he's got Jacob Warren open for a first down, throws the ball behind him a bit, and the linebacker knocks it out. But you say, well, that's a tough play. You got a punt there, but it's a really tough play because you felt like you had to score every time you touched the ball. Here's what I wonder this week, Rob. You got a new quarterback in Joe Milton. He's not going to have the full playbook at his disposal, I wouldn't imagine. I'm sure they're going to help him some with some check with me stuff at the line of scrimmage. In the LSU game, to open that game, Tennessee ran the ball like 6 straight times. They wanted to kind of announce their presence with authority, if you will. They wanted to be physical there. They hit 2 run plays against South Carolina in that first drive, and then they were playing catch up the rest of the night. I wonder if this week against Vanderbilt, Tennessee doesn't enter this game with trying to establish the run a little bit more than we've seen with Hendon Hooker as the quarterback the last few weeks. If it's a little bit about let's get the ground game going to help Joe Milton out in this game. I wonder if they alter a little bit of their approach to start the game, Rob.
That wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, I think we talk about it almost every week about balance being key to what Tennessee wants to do, but I think it's even more key this week when you're talking about changing quarterbacks. And for a backup, Milton is very experienced, especially for this day and age in college football when you have so much movement. But I don't think there's any way you want to go in there and say, hey, this game's on you and your right arm, Joe. I think far more likely that they do what you say, Hubbard, and really lean heavy on the ground game. And I would say they prefer to be more than balanced. I'd say they would be able to they would like to be able to lean on the run and complement that with the pass, especially some play action.
And Tennessee ran the football well against South Carolina. It's hard to really bank on the run game in the second half when you're down multiple scores, but Jabari Small had a good game. I thought Jalen Wright didn't get many touches, but averaged almost 5 yards per carry. Hendon helped in that regard a little bit. So, I would agree with that as well. Lean on the run game, help out Joe Milton, try to find that first down and some consistency on the ground, and then allow that to open up and help out your quarterback. So
yeah, and they had 60 yards on their first 2 carries from scrimmage on the opening series. After the opening series, they had less than 100 yards rushing. They averaged about 3 yards a carry, a little over 3 yards a carry, and they didn't run it very much. What I'm saying is, I just think that they're going to be a little – I would not be surprised if they're a little more hard-headed about trying to run the football early in the game, which I don't think since the LSU game they've necessarily been that way. They've been pretty I won't say pass happy, but they've tried to throw the ball to set up the run game to get their balance that way. I just wonder if they help out Joe Milton by trying to force the run a little bit more early in the game to create balance kind of in reverse order from what they've done the last few weeks.
Well, and do they come out and kind of go short passing game trying to get Joe some confidence? Kind of like, when you're trying to get that shooter that's kind of been, and Joe's not a slump because he's not been playing, but as you're trying to get him some confidence early, you're shooting in, and you work your way out. Like, or do they come in and just say, we're going to check it deep?
Well,
Can you
and
also
how
throw a change up in that situation as well?
Well, I mean, I don't think you're going to throw 5 70-yard touchdowns in this game, right? I mean, you're going to have to do some things. The question is, how's Vanderbilt going to play him? I mean, my guess is they're going to say keep the ball in front and don't let him throw it overhead, and see if he can make skilled, accurate throws for 14 plays, and throw slants and throw outs and that kind of stuff. So we'll see how Vanderbilt elects to play it. If they're going to play back with their safeties back, then that may dictate Tennessee running it even more to help, get this offense into some kind of rhythm with the changes from this week also.
Over under number of yards rushing for Joe Milton Saturday is what?
37.
I'm going to go 67. I'm going to add to that. I think they're going to run him. And I think he's very comfortable in that. And, that's just my feel.
Well, I mean, this is a Vanderbilt defense that is the only team in the league besides Tennessee giving up 300 yards a game passing. I mean, they've been much better against the run. And, some of that's probably a reflection of their schedule, who they played, especially in the league. But if you just look at it on paper, it's a far easier defense to attack through the air.
Yeah, Vanderbilt gets up 303 yards through the air, 153 yards on the ground, 456 yards overall, and 34.5 points per game. So there will be some opportunities there, but so far this season it's come through the air more so than on the ground.
Yep, I think they've only got 12 sacks on the year as well, which is obviously not helping their numbers and could help Joe Milton's rushing totals, if he doesn't hold on to the ball, because he may not have a lot of negative yards because Vanderbilt doesn't do a good job sacking the quarterback, Eric.
Nope, they definitely don't. Vanderbilt has sacked the quarterback 17 times so far this season, which is not a small number, but still it's not where some of the other teams around the SEC is. So Tennessee's moving on Vanderbilt. It's a huge game for all the reasons we pointed out. Of course, we'll continue to break down this matchup and preview this matchup. But one question that we will have, who might be available for this football game? We know Hendon Hooker's going to be out, as Austin kind of went down. He talked about the receivers, and we'll see about Brew, see about Cedric Tillman. No updates on Brandon Turnage or Danico Slaughter from Josh Heupel on Monday. But Tennessee was without its starting middle linebacker, Jeremy Banks, for this football game against South Carolina. We touched on this before the game, touched on this after the game. And Josh Heupel was asked specifically Monday about the rumors of the altercation in the locker room. Will he be available to play? Was he suspended? This is all Josh Heupel had to say on Jeremy Banks Monday in his press conference.
We anticipate Jeremy being with us here this week, and as far as what transpired and those types of things, at the end of the day, he wasn't available this Saturday.
So sticking with he wasn't available, he expects him to have the opportunity to be with Tennessee this week. We'll have to see if he checks all the boxes in order to get that done. But bottom line, Brent Hubbs, he is sticking to his guns, saying he's unavailable, and we'll have to see if Jeremy Banks is available for Tennessee this week because, the defense, it can use them. Now, it's not the reason Tennessee lost defensively. Jeremy Banks does not make up 25 points. I'm going to say that right now. But it's not like it would have hurt Tennessee to have him out there.
Well, there's no doubt. He's a talented player. Jeremy's got to take care of Jeremy's business, and put himself in a situation to where he's available to play on Saturday. We'll see, how the rest of the week goes for Jeremy Banks and where it goes from there. It certainly sounds like Josh Heupel is planning on playing him and planning on having him this weekend at this point. One of the things Coach Heupel is just, Austin, he's just not going to get into any details. He's not going to give any details to that and to anything that's taking place with his team off the field or with injuries or whatever. And that's his right. I'm not saying it's not his right. I think it fuels speculation, in my opinion, with things. And that's something that he, appears to be comfortable with. I'm not changing where we are with what happened last week, as you put out and noted in the chat on Sunday afternoon with details, because all of us on here have worked too hard to talk to people to try to figure out what all has taken place. And with what we posted on Sunday, everybody was comfortable with everybody that we had spoken with. But Josh Heupel certainly didn't put anything to bed on Monday in regards to that from a week ago. we'll see where this team is and where Jeremy Banks is and how this team responds to what happened this past weekend. And until then, there's going to be plenty of speculation about what's going on with this football team.
Yeah, that's right. And frankly, I'm just done talking about him. Like, I mean, if he plays Saturday, great. If he don't play, next man up. Eric's right. They weren't making up 25 points because Jeremy Banks. But he definitely does give them an added dimension when he's in there at linebacker. Can play sideline to sideline. He brings a lot of energy. But, I'm not so sure, if you play him Saturday, if, he'll be available, in postseason. Can he make it through another month? And I just think that ultimately, you need to, rely on Aaron Beasley, who I think is playing solid football. Juwan Mitchell needs to bounce back. He's played pretty well. He did not play well Saturday, but he's played pretty well leading up to that. So we'll see if he bounces back. And then what some of those other younger guys, what can they do? Can they come along? But the Jeremy Banks situation is what it is. At this point, here we are on Tuesday. People are going to believe what they want to believe. I know I've made a lot of, JFK references the last few weeks. Some people just like to live on the grassy knoll, and some people don't. And that's kind of is what it is with that situation.
Well, and again, I think part of it is people are looking for a reason why Saturday happened, right? Like something, all those guys are like, something happened. Fans are like, something has to be going on, right? And so again, we'll see where the leadership on this football team is. I don't think they're a divided house personally, or anything like that, but we'll see where the leadership of this football team is on Saturday. Not having Hendon Hooker out there from a leadership standpoint is a big deal. Who's going to kind of be the alpha guy? Who's going to make sure everything is getting done and ready to go? Josh Heupel said on Monday, Rob, that this team has good leadership. That leadership's going to get tested this week and on Saturday.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I don't think I think the divided house stuff is overblown, because I don't think you get to the last week in November and it just now rears its head. That doesn't jive with me at all. And you mentioned Hubbard's Josh Heupel's program. He can handle things how he wants. I think it would have been better for everybody if he just if there really was just violation of team rules type stuff, if he could have just quashed that on Monday and said, no, there wasn't a fight. It was violation of team rules, and we're handling it in house.
And I'll add one more thing to this whole thing as well. And I think we all have a pretty good understanding of this, but we've all been around football. We've all covered football. You guys, both you guys, Rob and Brent, your sons play football. You have 85 guys at the peak of their, physical ability, working out, playing game of football. They're around each other every single day. It's not going to be all roses every single day. There are going to be disagreements. There are going to be shouting matches. There are going to be dust-ups on the practice field. There's dust-ups in camp. That's football. That is what football is. And so, it just kind of, you have disagreements sometimes. That's normal. It does not mean you have bad culture. It does not mean that your house is divided. It does not mean that it's offense versus defense. For me, that's just the biggest thing from this past little saga that just got me all wound up a little bit. So anyway,
so perfect example. And you peel back the curtain a little bit with just me personally. So me and the wife, we're into a nice little verbal, dispute here recently. And one of the girls was like, oh, no, I don't want you to get divorced. I said, whoa. Just cause me and mommy are having a debate about something doesn't mean we're getting, well, so-and-so's mom and dad did that. Well, we're not them, So Eric's right. Just because you get into it doesn't mean that he's not your brother. He's not, you're not, still, buddies. You can have a disagreement. Hubs and I argue from time to time. And 5 minutes later, we're talking to each other like we're ready to go and, hang out, whatever. Like, the point is like that happens. Like, you can't crumble just because you have a disagreement with somebody. Like this whole notion that like half the team said, I'm done. I'm rebelling now, and I'm smell it in against South Carolina. Come on.
Yeah, I don't think they want to get embarrassed on national television.
That's like the most ludicrous take there's been. I've seen a bunch of takes. Some of them I can actually probably even get behind, like, just like they actually look valid. They might not be true, but they look valid. Like that one is just so ridiculous that half the team just said, I'm done. I'm going to let them get 3rd and 24s all day long.
AP, to your point, you'll remember, Paul Fortenberry tried to fight somebody every week for 3 or 4 years. And, we at the end of the day, we all managed to get along. and coexist.
Yep, that's right. Until he fell on a helmet, and we sent him to Clayton.
I mean, if people would be dumbfounded to know, like, even Tennessee's best teams, right?
Oh.
Like their most successful teams, that 98 team, I promise you, they didn't sing "Kumbaya" and wrote. And I mean, that's the locker room. And we just live in a world where there's so many outlets for voices and so many things, and so many people hear certain things, and it's okay to throw out every random thing that you hear out there, and those things become, take on a life of their own, which is my point when I was with Josh Heupel's comments on Monday, that when you don't put anything to bed, then the rest of the week, the discussion is going to be about what's that situation about. Yep. And then again, I'm not saying Josh Heupel's wrong, okay? Because I'm on the side of the fence where it would be like, hey, make it easier on me, selfishly. I help everybody out a little bit. It's his program. He's a former player, views the locker room as a sacred deal. You never talk about what happens in the locker room. All that's fine. That's his business. But it does and will continue to fuel speculation up until Tennessee kicks the football off Saturday night in Nashville.
Yeah, like the whole notion that this NIL thing. No, it's not. Buddy, players have been jealous of other players when they were getting paid under the table for years. Like, just because you introduce, legal money into it doesn't make the jealousy any different than it's been for 30 years. Like, because all these players talk. They all talked back when this player got that or this player got that under the table for years. And they all knew what each other had gotten or not gotten, or were shorted or shortchanged or benefited from or whatever. Same thing here. Last year when players were getting $100 for stuff, there was, same type, oh man, that there is this year. I mean, the whole notion is just so silly to me. But again, anytime you introduce money into something, there's always going to be a little bit of a dispute, right? I mean, players have a exaggerated self-worth of themselves, and so they all want as much as they can get. But this notion that all of a sudden that there's now jealousy on the team, again, players have known that kids got stuff for years. That's nothing new.
Yeah. And again, no one wants to get their tail whipped on national television. No one wants to lose out on some potential money in terms of draft stock. So again, there's pride. I mean, so there's just too many factors working against that one. So we will see if Jeremy Banks plays against Vanderbilt. But Tennessee will play against Vanderbilt and needs to win this football game to finish off a regular season that has been really good. First time, if Tennessee wins, again, it'll be the first 10-win regular season since 2003. If Tennessee wins, it could be the first 10-win season of any kind since 2007. It's been a long time. And you want to finish this off the right way because this has been a good year. You beat Alabama. You beat Florida. You debuting at number one in the college football playoffs. Saturday was disappointing. It was awful. No excuse. Pathetic defensive performance. College football playoffs no longer in play. Your quarterback's hurt. It sucks.
Were you at Rush Strong then? Where were you in 2003?
You think I went to Rush Strong?
I don't know. I'm just making this up. Jefferson City Elementary.
I was an Elk, baby. Elementary, middle. So in 2003, I was in elementary school. Yeah, so Jefferson Elementary.
That's great. Thanks. I appreciate that. Let's you talk about.
I was on Barnaby's, hanging out on Barnaby's.
Barnaby's. That's great. That right there is a great reference.
All right, so let's talk just quick as we get out the door here a little bit about the bowl situation. Okay, kind of clear everybody up on a little bit of that. That's the importance of this game as well. Not just
tell me where we're going. Tell me where I'm playing golf, Hubbard. Let's go ahead and predict it now.
Well, I think you could be in Dallas, which I've seen Dallas in snow for the Cotton Bowl before. So that's a possibility. Miami is a possibility. And then if you lose the football game, I think Orlando is where you're going. So here's kind of where this thing sets with the Orange Bowl, all right? The Orange Bowl is taking the ACC champion or the highest-ranked ACC team not in the college football playoff. Okay, so that would be Clemson as it appears right now, provided they win the ACC championship and don't get in the top four. The Orange Bowl's other pick is Notre Dame, a Big Ten school, or an SEC school, highest ranked in the college football playoff ranking. For Tennessee, they have to be careful for Penn State in the Orange Bowl. Penn State could take Tennessee's spot in the Orange Bowl if they finish higher in the college football playoff ranking. So that's the one. That's the team you're watching when you see the things unveiled Tuesday night and you go, Tennessee's fallen to where, look and see where Penn State's at, because that's going to dictate a lot about what the bowl season looks like in terms of the Orange Bowl. If the Orange Bowl is not a possibility and Tennessee beats Vanderbilt, then I think the Cotton Bowl is very realistic, and that would be against the group of 5 winner out of that pool, which could be Tulane, I guess, could be Coastal Carolina, perhaps. Could that be Cincinnati? I don't think that's going to be Cincinnati. Cincinnati and UCF's out there. Right now, it'd be Tulane if the Cotton Bowl were picking today, right?
About some juice
versus the Vols, baby.
So that's kind of where things stand in terms of New Year's 6, what the possibilities are for Tennessee if they win. It's those 2 bowls dictated largely by where Tennessee is in the rankings compared to Penn State. And then if Tennessee were not to win, then I think that Tennessee would be in Orlando for – is it still called the Citrus Bowl? I don't know what that thing is. Is that the VRBO Bowl?
The Verbo Citrus Bowl.
The Verbo Citrus Bowl. And we would probably use VRBO somewhere to have a place to stay at a bowl game, wherever that might be. How about that shameless plug?
You know, I was transitioning into that. It's like Brent Hubbs just read my mind right there. So, hey, that's a seamless stopping point after the bowl talk. And we'll be back at it for your questions on the mailbag edition of the Volquest Podcast coming up later this week. Hey, you might have missed $1 for 1 year. We still got a really good deal for you up until kickoff of 2023. Everybody's saying, hey, Joe Milton's going to start this weekend. It's going to preview what next football season is going to be like. From now until kickoff 2023, $10 for the year. Take advantage of it over at Volquest.com if you haven't already. If you're not a subscriber, you get weekly, behind the curtain stuff, the war room, matchup pieces, tons and tons of stuff that a whole lot of people miss out on if you're not a subscriber to Volquest.com, plus access to the General's Quarters where we drop in and put some recruiting nuggets, team news, all that stuff, and more. So $10 for 1 year from now until kickoff 2023 over at Volquest.com. For Rob Lewis, Brent Hubbs, Austin Price, I'm Eric Kane. Appreciate you guys for hanging out with us here today on the Volquest Podcast. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, everybody.